SEREMS, and I think we're to the point where, we've dug up all the data we can, and I would like, as an administrator, to request a meeting with their board, and I would like the board's approval to do so, and I think if a board person would like to come with me to be a second set of ears in just kind of ironing out exactly what's expected and when things happen, and just so we can get a clear story and have a good conversation, I think that would be awesome, and that's what I'm asking the board tonight.
I think that would be an excellent idea. I myself would invite Ms. Carlson to our township zoning. Maybe Bobby can sit in on that as well. And any supervisor who would like to. I think that's a good idea. Would you like to go over some of the history on what you put together for the township supervisors and for the public so they know the facts of what happened with the request from SEREMS?
Sure. So, as obviously this has been a long discussion, and just to sort of backtrack a little timeline of how we got here. So in November 2020, the board hired consultant Christopher Dell to give us an EMS report and an assessment. So, we received that, and that has been in board packets and is in public document if anyone's interested. Then in March 2021, we held the EMS workshop where Mr. Dell reported that he didn't believe that Union Township had the volume to support its own EMS per administrator's meeting notes. Then, how we really got here, October 15th, 2021, we received an email from SEREMS outlining the standard funding proposal, which is what has been such topic of conversation recently. And that funding proposal is dated October 2021, so it did not exist too much prior to that per how they dated it, we're gathering. Then on November 3rd, Mr. Pasco spoke at a budget workshop referencing the funding proposal, and then the meetings thereafter, it has been discussed by the board and by citizens in different capacities, and that's why I'm sort of to the point where I feel like I would like to request a meeting. And just to go over what was in this report overall, just a very, very brief summary. It was a very comprehensive report outlining why they're requesting what they are requesting. But it just outlines basically how many calls they have a day and where they get their funding from. As we've heard these facts or these numbers from our EMS agency, crew costs about $400,000 a year. Ambulance itself costs over $200,000. Not only do they need to staff enough to meet the calls per day, but they need to staff a cost of to be ready to go out at any given moment. We need someone on standby. We don't want busy ambulances, all sorts of things like that. Goes over how much they get from insurance versus how much it costs them to go out on these calls. Goes over their donations, how many subscriptions they get through their subscription program, and the proposal is to meet the 400,000 direct municipal support goal. To have enough manned stations, and this means that there's an $8.50 per person fee for municipalities that have the EMS stationed in their community. Union Township is obviously not one of those, as we've discussed, so that would mean we fall into the $5 per person category. And I think there's a lot of discussion and concern. It was not clear to me in the report when I read it if this is truly a bill of service, if this is, it's a proposal, but it's a bill, and so I think that meeting would really clear up a lot of the confusion, and we could finally hopefully get this straightened out and decisions made.
I think that's an excellent idea. I would encourage Bobby and Terry to try to get some of the answers based on some of the information we have here to bring back to the board. So what is the board thinking? How do they feel?
I think it's absolutely necessary to get the correct information in front of us.
I personally believe we've talked the EMS to death. I believe that they have presented multiple times. We've had multiple workshops for them, multiple consultants for them. There is even a letter attached on the back of that letter that is the ambulance telling you that this is a fee schedule. At some point, we just gotta vote to give them the money or not give them the money. They've given you a bill. You're either gonna go, I don't know what we would talk to them about. Are we gonna, like, ask them to cut the price differently for us than anyone, they've set forth a fee schedule. Now, either we wanna do it or we don't wanna do it, but we've been talking, I've personally been to 9 meetings where we have talked to them. They came to every budget workshop and talked about it. I don't know what else there is to talk about. I say put it on the agenda and vote on it, because it's been talked to death.
I will note as, an administrator that's trying to gather these facts and make a recommendation to the board, I'm not clear because in the very beginning it was stated that it was not a bill for service, that it was a donation request, and then it was stated that it was a bill for service, so just so the board is clear, from my perspective, making a recommendation, I still have some questions and I don't feel comfortable recommending one thing or the other.
Well, we need to find that out, and we need to find out the other communities are paying, what payment program the other communities are paying, and what communities aren't paying.
And
And
if
we
we
need to
can
have
set
all the
up,
facts
you know,
before
do
we
we,
write a $30,000 check.
And if we also can ask, I know my house, we pay $70 a year for the ambulance service. You take that $70,000 or $70 a year times half our residents, that's $210,000 a year coming out of our township. Where's that money go? What is it used for? I mean, you're here, you see it.
I mean, I didn't plan on speaking at all, but I will tell you, the percentage of the residents that subscribe to the ambulance service is a little around 12%.
And it goes to COVID
Okay.
if you get.
That's
And
my
that goes to our
question. How many
capital
people,
budget.
yeah, how many people actually,
It's
the
less,
information
it's
we
around
need.
12%.
okay.
and in the report, it actually states Union Township's subscription level, but it
Right.
states two different numbers.
How many people that do the subscription use the service and then deduct their co-pays off their ambulance things? But, I mean, I can see a letter in my packet of October 15th where they state this is a funding request. So it was pretty clear in October 15th, that they were asking this of all their communities. And I'm not saying whether to do it or not, but at some point, you're hanging them on the line. We have no representative over there because we have decided not to appoint the person that put their name in to be a representative for us over there. So we sit non-represented. We're gonna have another discussion. And they're not gonna do anything different for us than they've required of all their other communities.
If I may make a comment on the representative piece as well, in the funding request that SEREMS sent us, it did say board of directors as the appointed person, which is the point of contention, I believe, with the board per Sweat Law Office's recommendation, and so that would be something that I would really like to talk to them about as well, and make sure that we are represented there, but make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to litigation or liability per Sweat Law Office's recommendation.
Excellent, and there was some other comments in the paperwork that came from SEREMS on board seats that were mainly elected positions from other townships. So I'd be curious to know who makes up the board. Are they all elected supervisors that sit on the board of SEREMS? And what was Bobby's capacity? Was she just a representative, or did she have a board seat? Was she in addition to Mr. Fry, or ancillary to him? I know the board is confused here. We do have questions.
And if this makes sense, I would love to, create a list of the questions that I wanna make sure gets answered and send that to the board, and if you all have any additions or further notes.
So are you saying you were unclear what her position was when you appointed her to the position? And she was unclear what she was doing when she took the position? I just don't understand, I was pretty clear, I was here when she offered to do it, I was here when, but it was pretty clear at the time, but you're saying you're unclear what she was doing there, but y'all appointed her to do it.
Another comment to the board is, this is a private company, $30,000 is a great expense. I know if I was signing this check, I would wanna have all my research and due diligence. So I'm all for Terry.
Look for some other options as well.
Terry, one of the other,
Can we please not talk? I can't understand this. Thank you.
The
board
question
intake.
was asked, I answered.
Ms. Here?
thank you, board, to you and to Terry, Another question, I just lost my train of thought. I lost my train, I'm sorry. Anybody else have comments? I'll try to remember what I was going to say.
If any board member has any, specific questions beyond what we discussed that, you know, they think of and they would like me to make sure I ask, by all means.
I do remember. So one of the things that Mr. Pasco stated in the last public meeting was that he was unsure if he could guarantee service to Union Township if we didn't decide and make this payment directly. So obviously the board didn't take that lightly. We were in the fourth quarter of the year. We had two and a half months to decide. And, we didn't decide. So the question is lingering out there that when will SERMS decide not to serve our residents? So that's really important for me. What is our deadline to make this financial payment?
And I imagine it would be great to know, what other municipalities are arranging payment schedule-wise, you know, is this a one and done, is this, you know, can you start out reporters, sorts of information I'd like to gather exactly to that point as well.
Right. I also, wanted to say there's probably a protocol, because when emergent calls come in, they go through the 911 system up at Washington County, then therefore they're dispatched. So what would be the protocol if SERMS didn't want to wait for an answer from Union Township, if we weren't fast enough and they decided to leave the township? What's the protocol? Do they give us time to react? Do they discuss with 911 that they won't be serving our residents? I was curious for those questions as
I'll
well.
be sure to have all those answered when we have our discussion.
I think if any supervisor is interested in the meeting, we obviously can't meet in threes, but, please contact the staff.
I think it would be awesome to have the supervisor there. I would really prefer it.
Okay, that sounds good. I think if you could put this on a top priority list, so we can maybe have some information for the following meeting. Any other thoughts from the board?